On tonight's podcast, we have a special guest. It's my older brother. He was born and raised here in Brawley, California. Went to the United States Air Force Academy. Entered into pilot training. Is now a F22 Raptor pilot and stationed in Alaska. So very excited to have him on here. What's happening, Donald?
Not much, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on here. I'm excited.
Yeah, man, we're fired up to have you on here. We've had a few different career paths so far on here, and I can say that I don't think too many people get a chance to sit down and chop it up with an F-22 fighter pilot. So that's pretty damn exciting for me.
Well, I'm glad I can, provide some different inputs and some diversity to the show. But yeah, I'll do my best.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man. So we're gonna make sure we're gonna let Hunter lead this one a little bit more, since he's far more familiar with his brother than obviously I am.
Yeah.
And we'll go over, kind of touch on everything, and hopefully highlight some pretty cool aspects of Donald's life.
Yeah.
So just to start, obviously it's COVID right now, but you're out in Las Vegas. Can you kind of talk about what you're doing out there right now?
Yeah, no doubt. So, yeah, like you mentioned, I'm in Vegas right now. Been here for about a week. Probably be here for about another month. So 5 months total, or sorry, 5 weeks total. I'm out here for an exercise. It's called Red Flag. And really the way to think about it is, a lot of times for work, we'll do a lot of flying just kind of in our own squadron, kind of in-house. It's not very often we kind of branch out and go fly with a bunch of other people from other places, different types of airplanes and whatnot. So periodically they'll hold these large exercises at places, and this is just one of those things. So like I said, it's called Red Flag, and it's really just a bunch of airplanes getting together here in Vegas, getting to fly together. Kind of gives us that opportunity to train with some other people. And, if we were ever to go do something for real, that's kind of the way it would happen. So it's good to get to know other people and kind of, talk to and fight alongside the people you would fight alongside with if something real were happening. So it's kind of what we're doing out here. It's all training, but it's kind of just like what they call large force exercises, where we get together with a bunch of other airplanes and fly out of the desert in Nevada here and try to get better.
And you're training with other branches of the military? Because I know at Mira Mesa in San Diego, you train with the Marine Hornets, right? And
yeah, they try to get as much different, platforms, and whether that be different branches of, services. So yeah, we'll fly with Marine Corps, Navy, even other countries sometimes. That's kind of been quieted down, like you mentioned, during these COVID times. But yeah, we'll fly with other countries, you name it. And it's really just that exposure, So the first time you're flying on the wing of, say, a Navy Hornet or something, it's not the first time you've ever seen it when you're in combat. You got to see it in peacetime, kind of like this. So kind of takes away that shock or that surprise factor.
How often do you guys get to do these kind of things? Like how many times a year do you generally, branch out and do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't really speak to every unit. It's probably a little bit different per unit. For us, yeah, we typically do maybe 2 to 3 a year. I'm really fortunate, and I guess our unit is really fortunate that we actually hold some pretty large exercises right there up in Alaska, which is totally different feel than, doing it on the road like this, so to say. So, traveling to go do something like this versus, getting to fly these massive fights and these massive simulated wars right there in Alaska, and then driving home at night is a little bit different, but ultimately kind of the same training. Yeah, so we usually do like 1 or 2 back home usually, and then we'll kind of travel out and do maybe another 1 or 2 on the road somewhere else. Yeah.
So I got an honest question I don't know the answer to. Do you take your own jet? I mean, so did you walk out, you kind of hopped in your own ride and then went from Alaska to Nevada?
Kind of, sort of, not really. So we do tail assignments is what they call it. So say the squadron has 26 jets, something like that. They'll, write on the side of 26 of those jets the names of 26 pilots. So you get assigned a tail is what they call it. Probably contrary to popular belief on that, though, you really don't fly your jet, like your tail number, very often. Mm-hmm. So it's not like your specific assignment and that's all you'll fly is that jet, but it is still pretty cool, to get your name on the side of one. And when you do get the opportunity to step out and see your name on the side of one, it definitely feels a little bit more cool and kind of
That's got to be pretty special.
a little bit better. Yeah, I think it's typically a little bit more sacred, if you will. Not that it's not for us, but for the maintenance side. So those guys will also get their names painted on the side of a jet, and typically they spend a little bit more time with those jets specifically than I could say like us pilots who, I don't know, I'd say on average maybe fly their jet once a month. So
got you.
Yeah. So no, I'm not walking out to a jet with my name on it and just flying down to Vegas, but I do get to walk out and fly one down. So we call them rotors. I actually don't know what that stands for. You'll probably hear a lot of acronyms tonight. I can't probably specify what it stands for, but basically a rotor is just like a cross country where it's like, hey, we're going to take the jets from one place, transport them to another place. So we'll call it rotoring. Like, hey, we rotored down from Anchorage down to Las Vegas for this trip, and I actually did get to do that rotor down, so that was pretty cool. As far as rotors go, though, that wasn't the longest one I've done, but still takes a little bit of time to get down here.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I failed to watch Top Gun before this interview, but it was one of my favorite movies as a kid growing up. So do you have a call sign? Like, do you have your own, unique name?
Yeah. So that's kind of a, tradition in the culture, right? Is to get a call sign. The way I kind of look at it is a rite of passage, really. It's like that acceptance into the community. You show up, you're the unnamed guy, kind of doing all the, whatever you want to call it, work, right? Running around, just getting snacks for everyone and things like that. And then it's just kind of one of those steps along the process of, hey, you get named, and then kind of that rite of passage into the community a little bit. But how I usually introduce myself to people who don't know what call signs are or whatever is like, hey, my name's Donnie, but I go by Kong. So that's my call sign. Kong is Kong.
That's nice. I like that, man. That's strong right there.
And is there a special meaning behind that name?
Yeah, typically they'll have more of a embarrassing kind of background to them, so something that you're not as proud of. Yeah, but mine stands essentially for keeps on November gearless, and it just had to do with some flying antics with me. That's really all there is to it.
Some inside jokes.
Got you.
Yeah.
Little fighter pilot humor. I got you.
Yeah, typically it's one of those things that you usually did mess something up or you did something embarrassing, so that'll kind of earn you the call sign. But not everyone has to know that. They just
because if it's just Kong, it sounds hard. I mean, it's solid.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of those things. You kind of asked me about the other services. The Air Force typically will do cooler names. I've met some interesting fighter pilots from like Navy and Marine services where their call signs are a little bit different. They tend to make more of a joke out of them. So, but they're all good. They all kind of symbolize the same thing.
Yeah.
And I guess while we're already talking about, the F22 Raptor, kind of tell us what you can tell us about the jet for people that don't know. How fast it goes. How expensive these aircraft are, and how elite they are as far as combat. Yeah,
no doubt. Kind of the broad, brush strokes of the jet and kind of what it is and what it was designed to do is it's a 5th generation air-to-air fighter, air dominance fighter. So what that means is 5th generation kind of characterizes the fact that it's stealth. So minimizing signatures to not be able to be seen out there. That was kind of like a big leap in technology for the United States when they started creating stealth aircraft. So that's kind of what characterizes it as a 5th generation aircraft. And then air-to-air dominance, air-to-air fighter, really what that means is the jet was built to, take off and fly and kill other airplanes that are flying. Contrary to, I guess the alternative to that would be like a multi-role fighter or a strike fighter that's, either designed to hit something on the ground or kind of designed to do both of those things, which is what multi-role characterizes. So the way you kind of think of it is, hey, we roll in, we kill all the bad guys in the sky so that those air-to-ground fighters can come in and now strike targets on the ground. That's kind of the big picture of what the jet was designed to do. You asked how fast it goes. That's a very common question.
Yeah.
The answer to that is it maxes out at Mach 2. So you can think of 2 times the speed of sound. Fastest I've ever gone is, I think, 1.85. So I still got some. Yeah, I still got some.
There's a
Juice
little
left.
room there.
You will. Yeah, I still got some juice left to squeeze, so I'll
There
have
you-
to get there one day. But
yeah, man. I remember, when Hunter was interning with us, and I think that was when you were in pilot training, and you were doing your simulator, the mock simulator thing, right?
Oh, the G's test.
oh yeah,
Talk
it's
about that
called-
thing, dude. That thing looks like it just sucks the life out of you. I mean,
Yeah, so to kind of, I guess, put it into context, what that is it's called the centrifuge. So um, when you first start pilot training, you fly a certain aircraft that doesn't pull too many G's, but as you kind of progress, depending on your track selection is what it's called, you'll fly aircraft that are capable of pulling higher and higher G's. So anytime you get put into an aircraft that can pull a certain amount of G's, you have to get rated essentially in that centrifuge before they'll allow you to go up and fly it, which makes sense, right? You don't want someone who's never felt those kind of G forces to just hop into an aircraft because the consequences could be really steep, once you get inside the cockpit and God forbid something bad happens. So anyways, yeah, it's called the centrifuge. It used to be in San Antonio, Texas, which is where I went and knocked that out. They actually have it in Wright-Patterson, which is up in Ohio now. Is kind of where they do it, but did today. But anyways, yeah, you basically just hop in this thing and it spins in a circle and puts a bunch of G forces on you, and they put you through various profiles, and you work on this thing called a AGSM, which there you go, more acronyms. Like I said, really the way you can think of the AGSM is just like, hey, you're constricting your legs, constricting your abs, and you're using these breathing techniques. And the whole point is to be able to withstand more G tolerance or G forces. And ultimately, the danger there, and like I mentioned, why you have to do this centrifuge process is because when you pull G forces, you can think of it as like straight down from the top of your nugget here is like, hey, all that blood's rushing to your lower body. And if too much blood rushes out of your head to your lower body, you could pass out, become incapacitated, which could be detrimental flying airplanes, obviously. So you're really constricting that lower body and executing these breathing techniques as a mechanism to try to keep that blood up higher towards your brain, prevent that incapacitation. So they hand you a little video of like when you go through, and I will say, man, they put you through the ringer in those centrifuges. That's probably some of the worst G's I've ever felt, especially for extended periods of time, even after flying the aircraft for a little bit longer now. But
more so than you've ever felt, actually, like in a steady period where you're actually flying.
Yeah, I would say definitely more sustained. I don't remember exactly what the duration is inside that thing. I've definitely pulled like peak G that is equivalent to what I pulled in the centrifuge since then. But and there's just something about that machine. I don't know. It just feels different when you're in the airplane. You're just jacked up with adrenaline. I don't know. It just seems different.
Yeah. What was it like? So, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, and I'm sure actually I would guess you do. What was it like the first time you flew an F-22?
Ooh, yeah. I was actually hoping you guys would ask me that question because I always think this story is hilarious and it's 100% true. So I was selected to fly Raptors coming out of pilot training. I had actually never seen an F-22 in person when I got selected to fly them. And then I showed up to Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida. And I remember showing up and me and my wife, Kelsey, were like, oh, let's drive around the base, kind of, get our bearings around here. Yeah. And we pull up to the flight line and I'm like looking through the fence at these F-22s, the first time I've ever seen one. I'm like, golly, that thing looks like a spaceship, And I'm probably like a good 80 yards away from them. And I remember thinking, man, that's cool. And then the way the course is kind of designed, you go through academics, then you go through simulators. So again, the closest I've ever been to a jet is probably 60 yards. And I'd already been going through the course, flying simulators for a month and a half. So anyways, before you fly the jet for the first time, the day prior or a couple days preceding to the flight, they send you out to the jet and you'll do an engine run. So you'll just basically hop in the cockpit and start the engines and then just shut them down. Just so the first time you ever fly the jet isn't the first time you ever even
sat in that thing.
Really.
Yeah.
But anyways, the funny part about that is, like I said, the closest I'd been to one was probably 60 yards. And then the first time I ever stood next to one was the day before I flew it for the first time, which is just bonkers when you think about it. So anyways,
Yeah, you're talking about, I mean, how much are those jets cost?
Man, you know, that number varies, but it's somewhere around $130 million.
Yeah, you're talking about the first time you ever flew 130 miles. You stood in front of it one time, and then that's crazy. Yeah,
it is crazy. Yeah, so I go up there and I'm like, man, I'm gonna start the engines. Like I'm really gonna do it, you know. And I'm like, no one's gonna stop, no one's stopping me. So I start the engines, and I'm like, man, that was a trip in itself. And then the next day, I'm speeding down the runway. First time I've ever sat in one. And yeah, I just remember it was so funny. I remember being airborne and things are happening so fast. It's almost like you don't even remember it, you know?
Yeah.
But I do remember like this very specific moment where I'm flying, and we always fly in groups. So I'm looking at the other F22 and I'm like, oh my gosh, that thing looks so cool, you know? Like, and then it's like, oh my, you know, I'm sitting in the same thing, but I can't really see myself. Yeah. So I just remember thinking that was crazy, seeing the other jet that I'm flying with and thinking, man, that thing looks awesome. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm sitting in the same thing. I just can't see it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's something else, man.
You said these things look like spacecraft. I mean, they fly like spacecraft. I mean, I've seen them take off. I've seen plenty of videos of them taking off. And I mean, these things go straight vertical. I mean, up there.
Yeah,
I mean,
so 2 engines.
That's got to be an insane feeling.
Yeah, so they're twin engine fighters, which not all fighters are twin engine. Usually get single or twin engine, and then each one and max afterburner. It's about 35,000 pounds of thrust each, so we get about 70,000. And yeah, that thing will go. It's like sitting on a rocket ship. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What at this point in time, I don't know. I don't know how much you can divulge as far as your experience or anything. What is the most unique experience that you've had inside that plane that you can actually talk about?
Man, I've had, it's one of those things where when you haven't experienced a lot of the things that it entails flying these aircraft, it's like every new thing you get to do just feels so exciting. Yeah. So it is kind of tough to pinpoint things that stand out, but like this is a great example. I think like a couple of weeks ago, I went on a flight. I was doing some night flying and flying out there in Alaska, and I'm cruising around at 50,000 feet in the air, and just this beautiful picture of like the northern lights to the north of me. And I'm also just got the power all the way up, and I'm going like above the speed of sound, and I'm just like, and when you're doing it, you're just like so focused, that you don't really really soak it in. But then it's usually when I come home later that night and Kelsey's like, oh, how was it? And I'm like, man, the northern lights were crazy. I was going this fast. And she's like, how fast? And then she starts doing she's like, you shouldn't be going this fast. That sounds dangerous, You
gotta slow down up there, damn it.
I know, exactly. So
but that's probably true.
So
like
awesome.
You said, I mean, it's so there's so much going on in your mind. You have so much to focus on when you're actually doing something like this. But when you take that time and in retrospect, like to remember some of the things like that. So I can imagine that.
There's so many what would be considered just crazy things that become routine to you. One example is air-to-air refueling, right? We fly and we'll join up with tankers all the time and get gas so we can keep flying for longer missions. Yeah. And a lot of times I'm sitting there on the boom, is what we call it, getting gas, and I'm just like, it doesn't seem crazy to me, but I'm like, man, this is insane. Like I'm basically like flying around like a gas station in the sky, so to say, just, getting a full tank of gas so I can go fly around more. It's like,
it's not like an AM PM.
Yeah.
I mean,
grab a Slurpee real quick. But like, so when that happens, I mean, how high are you in the air?
Yeah, typically we'll refuel like in the upper 20,000 feet, lower 30. So
you're 30,000 feet in the air, hooked up to another jet to get refilled. I mean, that's gotta that is crazy.
It's a trip. And when they plug that thing and start pumping the fuel towards you, it's like once that thing gets plugged, you get like on an intercom with the guy, because there's a person in there controlling that thing. Yeah. And it's just funny because you'll just kick back and be like, hey, what's up, dude? And you're just having this casual conversation. I'm like, oh, where are you guys from? Or were you guys in town? Like, you guys kicking it, how's COVID been for you guys? Whatever it may be. And it's like, man, I'm in this $130 million airplane having a casual conversation with this guy as he's refueling my aircraft. So yeah, like I said, amazing things take place and it just becomes almost casual at some
Very
point.
much. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely second nature at some point to you, because it's just something that you do all the time. But for some regular people like us, it's insane.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
We're filling up at our office, and I don't even know how to put the freaking gas pump back in the thing.
Yeah. So
which is on our TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've come a long way since then.
Yeah. This guy's making leaps and bounds right now, man. Strides right here at this thing. So
kudos to you.
Yeah.
Trust me, I was
show off.
If you were to see me the first time I tried to get gas from another airplane, you wouldn't think I was that great. So trust me, it takes time and training and all that good stuff.
Yeah. You'll get there.
Yes.
One day I'll see if I can take a tank of gas and I'll fill your truck up while you're driving or something like that. Something cool. Send to your brother, you know. Like a video, rip the tank off, the hose off the thing.
That's amazing.
No, man, it is something else, man. Obviously for you, like you said, for you, I'm sure it is second nature, and it's become just kind of like it's your job and it's what you do. But yeah, I think to the common American who doesn't really understand, doesn't really fully grasp it, man, it's something else.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's definitely times I sit back and I just go, man, it really is crazy. It's really more of just in that moment, you're so focused. It's like, oh man, you don't really get to soak it in all the time, but there's definitely moments that things kind of slow down and you look around and go, wow, this is really cool. So
yeah.
It's wild.
I guess we can kind of talk about your recruiting process, because obviously this man who helped both of us get recruited for football, you were looking at several schools, Cal Lutheran, Occidental, some great schools to go play football at. And then you had this other opportunity.
And there were some others too. I mean, even before that, I mean, we talked to Harvard, we talked to some other ones because of your academics. So for those that don't know, obviously Donald had, amazing academics, both, GPA wise, test score wise, and everything. So, there was, I know academically go to most schools. I remember I think we were talking to Harvard, and they said, he needed to get like a 32 on his ACT. And I'm like, a 32, bro. Like, I want to say you had like high 20s or something like that. Like, I mean, you were really good test score, right? And so, but I remember, I was kind of thinking about that today. Is, I do remember though, dealing with you and your dad with this, is like you were kind of open for whatever. Like, I don't know if there was exactly one thing that you wanted at the time. I think it was just you wanted to go play football, as it seemed that to be the case. I think, kind of talk about a little bit with that and where your mind was at that time.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and a good lead into this is when I think back on those times, I think you kind of hit on a few points that jump out to me. Is one of them, I was very fortunate to have a lot of help from, you sitting right there, Justin, to my dad that helped me out with a lot of this kind of recruiting and putting me in touch, and or just motivating me to kind of, be active and, those roles, because I know not everyone has that. So I was really fortunate that I had, people that cared about me and kind of pushed me towards pursuing those types of things. And I think back then, what I really wanted was really basic. I knew I wanted to play football. I loved it. I always still do love football to this day. In terms of where I wanted to go, I think I just didn't really know, honestly. I wanted to go play football at the place that I thought was going to give me the best opportunity to get playing time. And I think in a lot of ways that kind of put me in a tight spot, because like you mentioned, like Cal Lutheran, Occidental, a lot of those schools like that really caught my interest because I thought I could succeed there. And it was really tough, because it's just a lot of times you don't really know where you fall in talent wise. Maybe with some of these schools, it's like, oh man, maybe I go to the bigger school like Air Force and it doesn't work out for me. Obviously that's a risk that you have to be willing to take and something that you got to work for. So I think I didn't really know, other than I wanted to play football, where exactly I wanted to go. But I think as it kind of started getting towards, crunch time, I essentially said, hey, I'm going to go play at the school, the best school football wise, that'll give me a chance. And that ended up being Air Force. and I'm sure our dad will listen to this, Hunter, but he obviously had a huge influence on me in that decision, which at the time, your priorities when you're 16, 17 years old aren't the same priorities that you have from the perspective of, your father who's whatever age at that time. So
yeah.
I'd be wrong if I said like, oh, I definitely was thinking, I don't know if this military thing, going to boot camp and kind of putting myself through all that stuff is what I wanted at that time. But at the same time, I didn't really know what I wanted. So
Yeah.
my dad definitely tried to get me to see the long term a little bit back then, which, obviously, as I sit here now and I'm talking to you guys, I wouldn't change it for the world, anything that happened. So I'm really thankful that he did do that for me because it worked out in a big way.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I'll give you one little nugget of information. So I think you were a sophomore. You played Santa Fe Christian, right?
Sounds
Yep.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So that's when you played the JV game or the fresh, right? And then you went up to the varsity game. So Brian Sipe, who was the head coach at Santa Fe Christian at that time, right? And former NFL MVP, Cleveland Browns quarterback, former San Diego State quarterback coach. After that season, he went to go work at SDSU, and he came down here to recruit. And I met him in Holtville, and we were just talking about players. And he's like, obviously, I don't think they're recruiting you as a quarterback, but he did remember. He's all, hey man, there's that kid at Brawley who played quarterback against us, who quarterbacked the JV game, and then he came up and then he quarterbacked the entire varsity game too. He's like, that is one tough ass kid. And, I knew who he was talking about. I'm like, yeah, I know that kid, man. I mean, that definitely is. And I mean, I think that's probably one of the things that if it wasn't you were the most athletic guy or you were this or that, you were a tough ass. You were just a tough ass kid.
Yeah.
And I would rather have that be what I'm known for than almost anything else. So I would say, man, that man right there, like I could tell it was a really cool experience for him to tell me that, because I was like, definitely is. And I know I think everyone else would agree that's something that they would classify you as.
Yeah, you totally sparked, I guess, some memories and some thoughts, that I haven't thought about in a long time. But I specifically remember that Santa Fe Christian game. That was a huge game for me. I think it might have been the first time I ever played varsity football that year.
Yeah.
And I still consider that one of the runs I had in that game, like one of the best sports moments in my life, probably. That was just like, man, I stepped onto the field that night, like, man, I don't even know if I belong playing out here. And to make a play like that, yeah, it's definitely something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. But yeah, and then to think back I haven't thought about playing JV and varsity, games like back to back like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, crazy to think about now. But I remember back then thinking, oh, I actually liked it because it kind of let me see like the scheme of the defense before I had to play varsity games, or a little warm up, if you will. So
yeah.
That's awesome that you remember that.
And that first touchdown against Santa Fe Christian, it was awesome. It looked so smooth. But didn't you say, and I think I remember seeing it on the film recently, you like fell on the ball at the very end and like knocked the wind out of yourself, and everyone's coming up like, Donnie, and you're like,
everyone's coming up to celebrate with me, and I'm like, I totally got the wind knocked out of me right at the end of that run, and I was like, I was so pumped up on adrenaline, though. Yeah, like I said, that run will be something I remember for the rest of my life for sure, and really that game in general. But
yeah. Those unique experiences in life like that stay with you no matter what. And I said we all have those sports moments in our lives for sure that we take with us. That we'll always remember. So you were talking about your recruiting process going through that, and I do for those that don't really understand. I mean, academy schools can offer scholarships. They can recruit players. And Air Force was recruiting you as an athlete, but Air Force didn't end up offering you a scholarship as a football player. I remember before, when you guys were going through your whole process of actually trying to get into the academy, right? You have appointments and letters and all the stuff that you had to get done. I talked to Air Force and they said, well, yeah, because Coach Thiessen was there, right? And he said, well, at this point in time, like, yeah, we like him, but we don't have a spot as far as a scholarship. He's going to have to, if he's going to come to Air Force, he's going to have to come over here, sign up, and try out as essentially, because I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, all Air Force Academy people, you have to play a sport. You have to do something when you're there, correct?
It's a lot. It's pretty similar to like what you would think of like a high school, I guess. Like they have like the Division 1, like no kidding, like athletic
Big
program.
sports, yeah.
Yeah, and then not everyone that goes to school there is a part of those programs, but they are required to meet certain like athletic goals and take various courses, almost like PE, if you will. But not everyone there is a Division 1 athlete. If that was the
No. But like intramural or something like that, right? Like there, you have to do something, I guess, when you're there. And but that was the idea, is that you go there, come and try out.
Yep. So you hit it spot on. I think it was my junior year of high school. I went out there for what they called their junior day, and it was like a bunch of junior high schoolers from all over the country go there and do some sort of football workout to show you the stadium and whatnot. And you said it, Coach Thiessen, who was there throughout the time that I was there and might still be there to this day, as far as I know, basically at the end of the day said, told a young, Donnie that had much longer hair back then, basically, hey, if you get into the school by the regular means, so get the appointment and get into the school, he basically said, and you show up to tryouts, like we'll get you on the team, is essentially the way I took it. And when he told me that was kind of one of those like, man, that's all I need to know. It was a Division 1 athletic program. I didn't have offers from anywhere else. So I said, you know what, I'm going to definitely at least pursue this. We'll see what happens. Maybe I get in, maybe I don't. But he held true to his word. That's essentially exactly what happened. Was I got the appointment, got accepted into the school. I showed up. I went through the entire boot camp experience, and I'm sure we'll circle back to that. But as soon as boot camp ended, I hopped on my little laptop they gave me. I shot him an email, and I was like, hey, like I made it. Essentially, hey, I'm here. Went to tryouts, and he emailed me back, said, yeah, tryouts to this day. Go ahead and come out. I showed up to the tryouts. Something worth mentioning is I lost a lot of weight during boot camp. So I think the last time he had seen me when I was out of high school was probably 210 or something like that. I got a boot camp like 180 pounds. So he was probably like, I don't even recognize this kid anymore. But I showed up, and he's like, totally like, yeah, I remember you. He's like, what position do you want to play? And I, for whatever weird reason, hadn't thought about that and wasn't really ready for that question. I just told him, I don't know, I played quarterback in high school. And he's like, I don't know if we're taking a quarterback today. He's like, what do you think about DB, defensive back? I was like, sure, sounds good.
That's
and then I started, I went out there, and next thing you know, I'm backpedaling and doing 1v1 drills. And they took me that day as a DB, never played defense in high school, nonetheless, defensive back. And I spent my first 2 seasons there as a defensive back, kind of learning that position. And I loved it. I think anyone that saw me play, or you kind of mentioned it earlier, I wasn't known for my speed. So I think that finally caught up to me after 2 years. And then they said, well, I think this kid's a little bit, maybe doesn't have all the size, but he's pretty tough. So we'll put him at outside linebacker. And that's kind of where I played my meaningful time while I was there.
Yeah, which I mean, to this day, I still wish you would have been able to play some linebacker in high school, because might have been able to, but you know what, things work out the way they're supposed to, and it obviously, maybe it would have been on a scholarship going there instead of having to do all that extra effort there, but no doubt. So I mean, you put yourself in the position when you got there, you worked for that, you got the opportunity to get on that team, and like you said, man, you worked through it, you ended up getting meaningful time throughout your later time there, and probably, I mean, experienced a lot of things that had you not have made that choice and taken that leap of faith to say, because I think you wanted to play. So I mean, I had you not made the team, what would that have, I mean, how do you think that would have impacted you?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was something that I basically, I went there for kind of a lot of different reasons, but football was definitely one of the biggest drivers, if not the biggest driver. So I put went all in, put all my chips there, and I was like, man, I'm here to play football. I really hope this works out. If it didn't work out, I'd like to think I would have just stuck it out, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really invested in making that team, and I was ecstatic when I did, because I just felt like all I needed was a chance, and luckily the coaching staff there took a chance on me, which was great. So yeah, like I said, Coach Thiessen was a man of his word and said, "Hey, if you get in, you show up, we'll get you on the team." And that's exactly what he did. So I guess he very easily. I could have showed up and he could have been like, "Yeah, I don't even know who you are." So thank God.
What's your name?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
and I mean, I had no doubt. Like, I had no doubt that I knew if you went out there and you got in front of them and you showed them what you could do. Just well, I wasn't too worried. I just, it's not the easiest thing. I don't people understand to get into the Air Force Academy alone. I mean, Air Force Academy or any of the academy schools is essentially like going to an Ivy League school plus military. I mean, your academics are elite. To get in, you have to be the top of your class, the top, your test scores have to match up with pretty much Ivy League level test scores. It is said so I mean, I think for you going there and taking that leap of faith, I mean, people don't understand. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, your football put you there. It was your academics put you there, and your effort with with you guys getting all the stuff that needed to be done to get into the Air Force Academy. And that alone for anyone is a lot of work to do. So I commend you for all that. But and then the fact that you put yourself in the position to get on that team, man. That's
yeah. And even once you make the team at that point, I mean, anyone that's played college football knows you're still considered a walk-on. You're not held as high as those kids that were recruited heavily.
Yeah.
And so, and refresh my memory, I mean, not long after you made the team, you got a staph infection that put you in the hospital, right? I mean, very soon after.
I think you hit it spot on, Hunter. I mean, when you get into those programs, you got to earn it every day, right? So that's exactly what I tried to do. As soon as I got in, started working out, I just tried to do my best every day, and that's pretty much what I would think everyone's doing. But yeah, and then that was kind of a setback that I went through. I can't remember exactly how long after it was, but I got like a staph infection in my ankle. So I just remember going to practice one day, and I get done with practice. I'm like, man, my ankle kind of hurts. I'm like, I must have tweaked it. Like, I just don't really remember it happening. And then the academy, like you guys have mentioned, is still a military academy, and I was a freshman. So I went back, got dinner, whatever it is, went to my room. And then the next morning, as freshman, I was required to wake up and kind of do this military type, whatever it is, parade type thing. I remember waking up and I'm like, man, my ankle is really hurting today. Like, it got worse. And I was like, golly. And then next thing I know, I'm standing out there and I'm like, I don't even know if I can stand anymore. I'm like, man, this thing is really hurting. So then I kind of like get one of the cadre or whatever. I'm like, hey, like something's wrong with me. I need to go take a break. And then he's like, all right. And they take me to the hospital or whatever. And it turns out, that I had an infection in my ankle. And they were like, man, you need to get surgery on this thing. It's pretty serious. I was like, oh my God, it happened so fast. But yeah, anyways, I got the surgery, and I think it put me out for about a month and a half. And I just remember being like, man, I just got in this program. I already felt like I needed to earn my way, and now it's just kind of this setback. But luckily they kept me around. I still showed up and kind of put the red jersey on and did whatever workouts I was able to do. And then before you knew it, got back to 100% and just kept doing my thing. But yeah, that definitely remember that being kind of one of those challenging moments. Like, gosh, I hope they don't quit on me,
Yeah, no doubt. After you just put in all that time and effort and got your opportunity. So they obviously kept you around. You kept working. And you ended up getting, when did you actually first get some real time on the field there?
It wasn't until my junior year. I basically, so my third year there, started getting special teams looks, and then a couple of opportunities on the field throughout various times. So yeah, it was really then, and then kind of trickled into my fourth year there. But the first 2 years, I was basically just putting in the work every day, not getting to reap as much benefits, but I was still traveling with the team, and like I kind of mentioned, I was just thankful to be there for the most part. Then it started turning into, well, I'm thankful to be here, but I also, that's not my end goal. My end goal is to obviously get on the field, which everyone that's there is trying to get to that point, So yeah, to walk on and basically not even know if I was going to even get a chance there to, suiting up and getting on the field with, some bigger schools towards those last 2 years was pretty surreal. And, it's, you can look back on it in two ways. There's a piece of me that's like, oh man, I wish I would have got more playing time or more opportunities, but I was, fortunate to get the opportunities that I did. And obviously, it's not, it kind of transcends football, right? The lessons that I learned, the things that I saw, the friends that I made. I mean, I'm still close friends with a lot of guys that I played football with back there. So I definitely got a lot more out of it than, and it was definitely worth the effort, I would say.
Yeah, than just the football aspect of it, but there, definitely, like said, tons of memories that you'll always have. And like I said, man, you played, the highest level of football and got some really cool experiences along the way with it. And yeah, man, that not a lot of people could do it, and most people could not do that. I think at the academies, like I think that I've known a few, obviously you and a few other kids of mine have gone to the academies, and it's a challenge. I think for everyone else, if you can kind of, for you, what was the most challenging aspects of being at the academy, and the academy life and the academy academics, and like, so for you, what was the most difficult parts of that?
Yeah, it's just like you mentioned, I think it's just a very dynamic place to go to school because there's so many interests and things that are important while you're there. Obviously, as someone playing Division I football, it's very important to you. But at the end of the day, you're at a military service academy, and academics is obviously of great importance. And they put a lot of emphasis on that. And, in order to earn that degree, you got to put in the work. So that's obviously a challenging aspect of it, in addition to the fact that they're grooming you to be, an officer and ultimately a leader once you graduate from that place. So there's various, things that come along with that, whether that's, like the kind of I mentioned briefly earlier, like parades or, grooming standards, you name it, just standard military things that, things that you got to do. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. And yeah, I mean, you see it while you're there. Not everyone makes it. And, it's a challenging place to be because you kind of got to balance those three things. That's kind of the way I looked at it while I was there is, hey, I had my football interests, I had my academic interests. Additionally, I had the military requirement that's involved with being there. So I think it's really just balancing all those things and knowing that, hey, you can't lack in any area really. Otherwise, they'll kind of weed you out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, the academics was tough. You were talking a lot about how smart I was. I'll tell you right now, that place was a punch in the mouth when I first showed up.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
School. And I remember after that first semester, I was like, my gosh, man, I got to start focusing on school a little bit more. Otherwise, I think they might weed me out. But yeah, it was a challenge academically, but I adapted just like everyone does. And I think everyone goes through that to a certain extent when they get to college, right? So
no doubt about it. I think, I think we probably, all of us have had that that rude awakening of like, man, I don't know how to study. I don't know how to time management. I don't know how to, and because you don't. I think high school and is it's very easy before you get to that college level, and then it's a lot of that, and
forces you to grow up, and you got to kind of learn how to do it. It's either sink or swim, because while there are people there to help you, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be the one to put in the legwork. So that applies well beyond just those institutions. It applies to everything today too. So I'm glad I learned those lessons at that point in time, and I didn't like turn a shoulder and quit or anything like that, because it just kind of taught me how to do those things, and I still utilize those lessons to this day. So
no doubt about it.
To mention, just from a mental standpoint, I mean, being at such a tough school like that, and coming from this small town, which is such a tight-knit community, all of our friends, I mean, the majority of all of us went to fun schools where guys are partying, having the time of their life. You have a girlfriend, a high school sweetheart who you're now married to back home, and it's like that makes it even 10 times tougher.
Yeah, like you said, I think that was part of my decision matrix back when I was in high school, right? Was my interest when I was 16 and 17 didn't really coincide with my dad's interest at the time. So there was definitely a piece of me that was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to go to this place. I'd like to go somewhere and have a good time. Not that you can't have a good time there, but it's definitely a different experience. So, like I said, my
You're there
dad
to work too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, like you said, it's tough. Like back then, I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to go do that because I'd like to go, somewhere maybe I could have more fun. It might be tough from my relationship with Kelsey, but I think really all it came down to is when you got there, it's just like the no quit mentality is like, hey, I'm here. I made the decision to come here. I'm not going to just throw in the towel. I'm going to give it my best effort, and if I don't make it, I don't make it. But it's certainly because I just threw in the towel, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And so at the academy, and I don't think a lot of people understand this, which I didn't either. I mean, I guess before, did you ever have intentions? Do you ever have a vision of yourself being a pilot? Was that, because obviously you grew up around it, right? I mean, it definitely runs in some of your family, and talking with your dad as well, right? I mean, even his father, and then
my mom's father.
Yeah, and it's was that something that had been, was that something that was in your mind, or was this just kind of like, by chance?
I think we're going to see a common theme here with a lot of things that have gone the way they have in my life. Like I've said, is like, hey, I knew I wanted to play football, but I didn't know where, and I kind of needed a lot of guidance at that point in time in my life. I kind of feel that same way about kind of my career path. So, no, I did not grow up wanting to be a pilot. Like I said, I went to the Air Force Academy to play football, and I was like, well, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with my life once they make me have to decide. And so towards the end of the time there was a lot of conversations with my dad about what I was going to do. I thought I wanted to be essentially an Air Force finance officer, to be honest, at first. And then he was like, oh, you know what? I'll give this flying thing a chance. I'll go try it out. And luckily I went to a place that they offered, programs called Powered Flight is what it was called, that you could take in the summer. It's like 3 weeks. And it's basically like, hey, we'll kind of show you the ropes of what military aviation is like. We'll get you airborne and see what you think. So I took one of those courses, and even then, you're probably expecting me to say, "Oh, I fell in love with it." Even after that, I was like, "Man, I kind of liked it." I don't know. When I get out of the airplane, I feel a little queasy. I don't know if this is for me. But you know what I really do think kind of drove me towards all these things in my life was I always seemed to gravitate towards the things that I thought would be the most challenging, and I think that's kind of what took me to Air Force in the first place. And to try to walk onto that football team is because, hey, I thought it was going to be a challenge, and I knew there was some risk involved. But even after taking that powered flight course, I was like, man, I don't know if this is for me. But it was just kind of the route that I envisioned as being the most challenging. And I was just always the kind of guy that was like, well, I want to go do something that's going to challenge me and something that when I pop out of the other end that I'll be proud of. So I think that kind of ultimately gravitated me towards that, because it wasn't something that came naturally to me or something that I fell in love with, but it was something that I guess kind of just excited me in terms of the challenge of it and the person that I would become on the other end if I was able to do it,
I think you made the right decision, man.
Dude,
finance guy or whipping spaceships?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, exactly. But your response though to that, man, like I think for a lot of people, man, I think your response to that right now is saying you've always gravitated what's going to challenge you the most. And I think that is like something that, I think a lot of people obviously run from what's going to challenge them the most, right? Go away from that. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to have pressure on me. I don't want to be forced to, to find out what's inside. And I mean, obviously knowing you and knowing who you are, it's not surprising that was your answer to that, or that's how you, but I mean, that's such a unique perspective on that. And I think that's something that a lot of people would take something from, because, man, I think that's something to be said for, like, yeah, I don't want to go down that easier path. Like, this one looks a little more difficult, so let me ride down this one. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, only because we're on the topic, and I know I'm going a little out of order here, but first I talked about the decision to go to the academy. Then I talked about the decision to be a pilot. Believe it or not, like I said, I was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I want to be finance, or I want to fly airplanes. Oh, I'm going to do airplanes because I think that's something that'll challenge me, and I just naturally gravitated towards that. Then I showed up to undergraduate pilot training down in Del Rio, Texas, which was actually basically like being in Brawley. It's right on the border of Mexico, but just in Texas.
Okay.
It's right at home. I showed up, and when I first showed up, I was like, well, I don't know what I want to fly. And so, like I said, kind of common theme, right? I just show up,
Yeah.
stumbled into all these things, and I just never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was like, well, hopefully I'll figure out, what I want to do as I go through this program. And like I mentioned, so when you show up, you fly this aircraft called a T6. It's like the initial trainer, and everyone that shows up is going to fly that thing. That's the first thing you'll fly. And then once you get done with that, then it kind of branches off into like, okay, do you want to go fly the next trainer, T1 or the T38? And really what that sets you up for is, hey, if you fly the T38, it's like a little twin engine, jet essentially, that sets you up to fly fighter aircraft or bombers. And if you fly T1s, that kind of sets you up to fly like big heavy aircraft, whatever it may be. So I showed up, I was like, man, I don't know what I want to fly. Maybe I want to fly C-17s because they say they travel all around the world. So maybe that's what I want. And then as I went through the program, it started becoming apparent to me that the more challenging, kind of like the people that were doing more, well in the course, that's kind of where they were all gravitating towards. So I was like, all right, I'll just follow suit and go with that. And luckily I got to track that thing. So yeah, I guess that message is something that I didn't really think of myself until later on, but it just seemed like I kind of showed up to all these, situations, not knowing what I wanted, which was fine, but then kind of ultimately just gravitating towards the thing that I felt would challenge me the most, and kind of stood at the other end as something that I would be proud of. So I kind of just went with that basically throughout the entire process.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
And talk about things coming full circle. I mean, you sound a lot like our first guest on the
Yeah,
show.
bro.
Our dad.
Yeah,
just taking opportunities as they come. And
you and your dad definitely have some similarities in that aspect, as far as just whatever presents you, you're not afraid to take that head on. And obviously did the same thing with your dad, man. Definitely a desirable trait to have, not being afraid to take on challenges. And obviously it puts you in positions like this because you can handle those challenges. But you definitely you find out who you are when you're pressured, when you have pressure put on you, and you have to find out what you're made of. And I'm sure those experiences, every single one of those experiences along the way, has brought a new person out of you, right? Like something else.
Yeah. And I always just kind of approached every phase of the training as, I'm going to do the best that I can, and not being afraid of failure, but it's like, man, I don't want to fail at this thing. And believe me when I say I failed a lot along the way. Setbacks like that, surgery you mentioned, or, not passing flights throughout, pilot training or whatever. And it's always those failures that kind of, are the ones that have the most lasting impression to me. And I think it's not just, it's not a matter of if you're going to fail, it's almost when. It's what's important, I guess, is how you're going to respond to it. So I mean, I think that's naturally kind of what's going to happen when you go out on those limbs and take the more challenging or more risky route. But I guess you just kind of accept that when you do it, and continue and really just do your best is all you can do.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so at this point, I mean, you're still this kid from Brawley. You journeyed into the unknown. You walked on, you played these 4 years of football. You're in undergraduate pilot training. I mean, and I know you earned some big awards while you were there. I don't know if you could talk about these, but kind of talk about these things you achieved.
Yeah. So essentially throughout each phase, they try to award people for essentially just how well they performed in the class. It's pilot training, and really military training in general, it's kind of unique in this way. Is you're always being racked and stacked and compared to your peers, but you're also being graded on how much you lift your peers up, right? Because to be the guy that's
leadership,
to be the guy that's doing the best at everything, but then just like clawing over his classmates and beating everyone, kind of down below you, is not the person that they're looking for, right? They're looking for the type of person that's not only talented or credible, but the type of person that's going to lift up others around them. And so I think I learned those lessons going through, because it's like I said, they're going to award people for their performance, but they're also going to award people for how well they work with others, and kind of I guess, lift others up around them. But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, they gave out some awards. I won some awards through each phase, and it really just had to do with, studying and how I racked and stacked compared to my peers. But yeah, I was very fortunate because I was surrounded by a lot of people that helped me out along the way. Believe me when I say I didn't do it all on my own. So
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, I'll say about you is, because I know you've had a lot of wins in your life, but I'll say that, I mean, you're very humble about those wins. You're very humble about the your efforts that that you've put in to get where you're at, man. Which is really cool to see that, because you could be definitely very boisterous about what you're doing right now, and you're definitely not. For someone who gets out there and sits in an F-22, you're very you're very even keel, man. I'm sure that's a great trait to have too, though.
well, yeah, and to kind of, like you mentioned earlier, bring some of that full circle, I kind of attribute a lot of that to, where I'm from. I feel like I've always been that, kid with a chip on his shoulder, right? From a
Yeah,
small town who, hey, what's your name? Where you from Brawley? They're like, oh, where's that? So, I always felt like I was kind of fortunate to be in the positions that I was in. I never felt like, I overly deserved to be anywhere. So I think that kind of naturally lent me to, hey, I'm lucky to be here. I'm going to do the best that I can,
yeah,
and kind of represent where I'm from, because you guys know, as soon as you step out of Southern California, it was always like, hey, where are you from? I'm from Brawley. And they're like, where's that? And it's like, yeah, I mean, this guy
San
at
Diego.
this moment, the only person he's ever met from my hometown is me. So, I got to represent where I'm from well. And
that's
yeah,
right, man.
I want to be that guy that's, you know, I've always wanted to be the person that's, credible, but also humble about what he's doing, not just, hey, I'm going to claw over everyone to get where I'm at, but, I'm going
Yeah,
to do my best, and I'm going to try to help out others around me as well.
yeah, no, man, you're doing some amazing things. I'm curious as far as your I mean, well, so you've been graduated. You've been a F-22 fighter pilot for, I mean, how long?
I graduated from the initial qual course in essentially the end of 2018. So I've been flying the jet for about 3 years. I've
Mhm.
been flying it up in Alaska for a little over two.
And right now, as
Yeah.
far as your service, how many years do you have left, and what is your plan as far as your future?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, if I ever get into the weeds with anyone who wants to talk about it in terms of like career path in the military, this is definitely something to consider. And this was something that I considered heavily when I kind of was deciding between that finance officer or pilot or whatever it was. But um, when you sign up to be an Air Force pilot, you owe a 10-year commitment from the time you earn your wings. So from the time that I graduated pilot training, I owed a 10-year commitment to the military. So that time ends in 2027. So I got a long time.
Yeah,
That's kind of where I'm at now is, hey, I'm bought in and into this career that I, currently working in until that time. In terms of where I want to take this thing, uh, I don't know, right?
yeah,
Just kind of like all these things is I kind of always been the type of person that I'll cross that bridge when I get there. Things that
sure.
interest me at this time is, I mean, a common one is to go fly for airlines or whatever it is. Either
Yeah,
just stay in the military and try to make a full career out of it, longer on, further on past that commitment, or getting out completely and then doing something other than flying airlines. So there's a multitude of options. I'll
hmm,
kind of see where I'm at with my life when I get there. I think some of the biggest factors will be my family. Like
yeah.
my wife. Whatever else we got going on at that point. I'll try to you know do what's right for me and do what's right for them. And so yeah, I got hopefully have some options, but we'll see.
So and right now you're stationed in Alaska. How long is that? I mean, I don't even know what you would consider, but how long are you there for sure?
Yeah, so the assignment is 3 years from the time that you show up. So I showed up September. Like I said, I think it was 2019, December or September of 2019,
Okay.
maybe. I don't know. Anyways, a 3-year assignment, and Okay, so now I showed up in 2018 because yeah, 3-year assignment. My basically assignment's ending this September in 2021. However, basically I just got to put in for what I want to do next, and I requested to extend. So that's what I'm hoping
Okay.
for. So essentially, taking this 3-year assignment in Alaska and making it 6, but kind
Yeah.
of open words on that. Obviously, I'll go do whatever they send me to go do. So, yeah, fingers crossed. That's what happens. I know a lot of people probably hear that and think that I'm out of my mind because Alaska is such a remote and unique place
Yeah.
to live. But that's something that I've been fortunate with is this career path sent me all over the United States, and everywhere you go you make home, right? Just like in the Imperial Valley, that's my home, and there's a lot of people I care about back there, and I kind of feel that way to a certain extent about everywhere that I've been. And it sounds cliche, but it's the people that you meet, right, at each stop that
Definitely.
you meet. And I really haven't had an assignment that I've hated. And you know, the same goes for Alaska. Man, like you talked about or asked me earlier about like things that I've done in the airplane, and I just think of all the memories that I've made in just the 2 years I've been here. I'm like, yeah, this place
Yeah.
will always be special in some way for me.
Yeah, that's impressive to think they actually like you actually want to stay there, because I think most people would be like, who don't know Alaska, and I'd be like, bro, you really want to stay there because you think like, oh, what, you want to go to San Diego, or you want to go to like what, wherever else where the opportunities would be for you. But yeah, that's impressive to be
Let alone a kid from the hottest climate in the United States.
Yeah, that
pretty
too,
much,
man.
the desert.
Yeah, well, they both of you, right?
Requesting to extend
You and
there.
Kelsey. I mean, just both of you being there, and obviously, I'm sure this somewhat is a family decision on when you're making these things. It's not solely you're not saying this is what we're doing. I'm sure there's a little bit of input on the other side too. So,
Yeah, you
yeah,
bet.
man, that's impressive. I'm surprised. Which I think that obviously says a lot about the place for you and what it means to you, and your enjoyment in that environment.
Yeah, I also don't like moving. It's a pain.
It is. It is. Yeah. 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 I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Um, I had something else I want to ask you, and I have a fair idea of what you might say, but I'm not sure. For you in your life right now, who would you say is someone that has made a profound impact on your life and shaped a lot of who you have become today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I've alluded to one of the people that came to mind, and not so much the other. So I definitely got to do my due diligence there. But the first person, especially early on in my life, would definitely be my dad. Right? He was with me every step of the way through a lot of good times and bad times, and kind of was that voice of reason for me. And you know, when the day comes that I have my own kids, right? I want to be the type of dad that was, there and, providing that support because, I know how much of an impact it had on me. And like I said throughout this podcast, right? I don't think I'd be where I am today if it weren't for him. So that's the first person that comes to mind. And the kind of the beauty of it was like my dad was with me probably, I kind of consider through, college, but then it was like almost like a passing of a torch. Like, once I got out of college and then I got married, it was like, hey, now my wife Kelsey is kind of the one that has been with me, since we got married and have been moving around and, doing all these unique experiences. And she's been there every step of the way with me and kind of been that rock, whether, good times or bad, ever since that point in time. So those are the two kind of people that I think have had really profound impacts on, in my life, whether that was early on or, even to this day. So,
No
yeah.
doubt, man. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and it definitely takes I think for anyone as they get older, especially you find a significant other, someone that definitely has their own goals and aspirations, but also supports yours and wants you to go out there and get what you want. And I'm sure, man. I mean, to for her to deal with this life, because I know that's not easy on a day-to-day basis. It's probably not easy knowing you're going up in the air and there's always risk in anything that you do, so I can only imagine that relationship too has got to be a big part of why you're being your success right now too.
Yeah, it takes a lot of trust, right? She trusts me, I trust her with a lot of these things. And yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, I'm the one that gets to go and have all the fun. And a lot of times she is the one at home making the real sacrifices. So I'm just lucky that I, ended up with someone who's willing to do that because, it could while it's great and it works for me, it could very easily have gone the other direction. So I've been very fortunate.
Definitely, man.
This is I know we're coming to the end here, man. This has been awesome for me because I mean, since you taken off to the academy when you're 17, 18 years old, I mean, me and you hardly see each other at all. You know, we grew up all those years, I mean, together, and you know, you've been my role model, you've been older brother to me, and just to see the person you've become and you know what you're doing, you know, for yourself, for this country is just it's amazing, man. And I'm proud to be your brother. You know, I look up to you. I look up to Kelsey. You know what she's done for you, like you just said, and you know, Dad's been that role model to me. You know, I'm small town success. I'm sitting next to this guy right here. He's my mentor. You know, currently, you know, as much as Dad is, and you are, and it's this has been awesome for me. You know, I feel like I really got to catch up with you, and I love you, man, and this has been awesome.
Thanks, love you too. Yeah, it's always good to catch up, and yeah, I agree. Kind of to that same sentiment. It's been good. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be
Absolutely.
cool. I think it's going to be really cool. I love hearing about what you're doing. And I mean, I know there's a lot of, crazy shit that you can't talk about too. We won't put that up,
Yeah.
but I know there's a lot of stuff, man. For you, man, I do like, the cliche thing, like, thank you for your service and shit. But no, truly though, like, I do appreciate, man. I mean, it's what you're doing is, the choices that you make in life like this, definitely I'm sure don't are not the lightest decisions you have to make, and I know those are things that that you got to take some time when you make the decisions of things that you're doing in your life. So much respect to everything you've done and all the work you put into what you've done. This is off the podcast shit. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff, man, and worked very hard to get to where you're at. And we all got to put an effort to get what we want in life, but yours comes with a little more sacrifice from your own side, man. I definitely respect what you've done, man, because when people talk about like that class that came out of here, and a lot of people have been successful in that thing, man, but when I think about like your success, it's something different, right? You know what I mean? Like, the fact that you're doing what you're doing right now, it definitely supersedes a lot of things that people have been able to achieve, because it's so unique, and it's definitely, I'm sure there's selfish things about it for you. You love what you're doing, but it's definitely selfless as well in a lot of other ways, So, man, much respect to you, brother.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, it's good to hear that. And I always try to respond to the thank you for your service. Well, thank you for your support, because you and I both know not everyone does. And yeah, I'm always grateful. I've had a great support system from, the time I was born all the way through now, right? So like you said, it's made my life a lot easier, and that pride that people felt in me, I didn't want to let them down through, every step of the way. So it's because of that type of support that I think I really was able to, do any of these things. So yeah, it's been great. It's been a great ride, and hopefully it just keeps going.
That's right. I can't wait to see what else you do, man, with this. I'm sure there'll be, at some point in time in your life, there's going to be a lot of really interesting stories that you'll be able to put out there for, whenever you decide to move on to the next role in your life past this. It's interesting you said the thing about airline stuff, because it seems to be a very common move. My buddy's brother, same thing. He went airline, and then I think he does like FedEx now. Like he left the airline thing just to do that thing, and not have to deal with like passengers, like that kind of flying, I guess. But it definitely. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities out there for you, I'm sure, after all this stuff, and definitely things that'll take care of you and your family financially. So, which is cool.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I got to learn a trade or a skill, right, to be able to fly airplanes, like learning to be a car mechanic. It's, something that no one can take away from you. So
Yeah. Not too many people. I mean, I can fake a lot of things and figure out how to do something. I do not think I can fake beat a damn fighter. But all right, let's see. Where's the keys?
I flew the simulator when I went to his graduation in Florida. I crashed that thing in 2 seconds. Dude.
Now, was this before or after you split your pants open as well?
Let's not talk about that, man.
Oh man, I appreciate you taking the time for this, man. I think there's a lot of cool little things in this thing that people don't a lot of things people don't know about, man. So I think it'll be cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the time and hearing me out. It's cool that people want to know about me, you know. So
yeah,
you're doing such a rare thing, dude. And obviously, like the name of the show, Small Town Success. You got a lot of people in this small town that are watching what you're doing and rooting for you. So,
glad I can contribute, and I'll be watching for the next episode. So
yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. All right, go save the world and shit. All that cool stuff, man.
All right, guys.
All right, man.
All right.
We'll talk to you later, Don.
Talking to you, brother.
Peace.